I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. My name is Pat Culhane, and I have some opening remarks. I'm sitting in for Paul Carr this evening. Welcome to the attendees and to all of the members. The public meeting is being heard by the City Council Planning Advisory Committee, and public notice has been given in accordance with the Planning Act. The non-elected members of the Planning Advisory Committee are Mr. John Baltutis, Mr. David Joyce, Ms. Catherine Brown, and Mr. Paul Jennings. Citizen appointees may ask questions and participate in the discussion in order to assist in making recommendations to City Council, but may not make motions or vote in connection with the public meeting. If a person or a public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Planning Committee or City Council before the bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of City Council or the Local Planning Appeal Board, or LPAT. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Belleville before the related bylaw is passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Local Planning Appeal Tribunal, unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. Comments received at this public meeting, as well as written comments, will be considered by the Engineering and Development Service Department in analysis of the applications that were part of the public meeting tonight. A recommendation report will be brought forward upon receipt of all agency and public comments in the future. Any persons wishing to be advised of the Belleville Planning Advisory Committee's recommendations with respect to today's applications are requested to leave their name and address on the appropriate notification sheet, and you'll find that on the clipboard on the table beside the podium. Thank you. Attendance, we're missing only Councillor Carr, I believe. Everyone else is. Councillor Williams? Oh, I thought he was coming. I saw him. Okay, Councillor Carr and Councillor Williams, everyone else is present. I'll ask for disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Seeing none. Now, item 3, public meeting, the Planning Act. I'm going to ask Mr. Ashton to summarize this item, please.
So the intent of the rezoning is to permit the existing medical office located at 262 Dundas Street East to be expanded onto lands currently known as 260 Dundas Street East once they are merged into one larger lot. So the lots are designated commercial in the city's official plan, and they're within the Dundas Street East corridor. The existing medical office is zoned highway commercial exception 1. The lot on which the medical office will be expanded onto is currently zoned residential second density exception 3, which means that this lot would be considered as legal non-conforming, with the intention of the lot being rezoned to commercial to align with the official plan. The new highway commercial zone will recognize the existing 7.5 meter setback of the existing commercial building, along with the uses currently permitted in the HC1 zone. The site will be subject to site will be subject to site plan control and will be reviewed to ensure proper stormwater management and other matters. The property will also be required to have a privacy fence along its boundary where it abuts residential properties. So comments received at this public meeting, as well as subsequent written comments, will be considered by the Engineering and Development Services Department in analysis of the application received to amend the City of Belleville zoning bylaw, and a recommendation report will be brought forward upon receipt of all agency and public comments.
Thank you, Mr. Ashton. I'm looking for. Item 3.1, notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 10245 as amended, 260 and 262 Dundas Street East, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file number B-77-1086, Applicant owner, James McMahon Dentistry Professional Corporation. Agent is Task Force Engineering. Anyone in favor? Oh, a motion to refer to the PAC meeting, please. Councillor Sanderson? Councillor Kelly? All those in favor? Oh. Okay. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this motion? 3 times? Mr. Kempener, welcome.
Yes, I'm with Task Force Engineering, the agent for the owner of the property. Oh, there we go, okay. I'm with Task Force Engineering, the agent for the owner of the property, and as Steve pointed out, the amendment that we're looking for, the rezoning, is in accordance with the official plan that's currently in place. We actually understood that it was zoned commercial, but it turned out that the official plan has it as commercial. But in any event, I think there was one item there that we're looking to have the front yard setback. I guess I don't know if that was mentioned in your report there, but it's set back somewhat less than, or somewhat more than what the current building is that we're attaching onto. So it is set back further from Dundas Street than what currently exists. And the reason for that is to try to maximize the parking in the back of the building. If there's any questions at all, I'll be happy to answer them, but I think it's fairly straightforward.
Anyone have questions for Mr. Kempener? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Third and final time, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Then, motion, yeah. All those in favor of moving to PAC? Carried, thank you. So read this out. Okay, and a motion to adjourn the public portion of the meeting, please. So Councillor Sanderson, Councillor Williams, all those in favor? Thank you. That's carried. We'll move now to the, pardon me, Belleville Planning Advisory Committee meeting. The agenda, Planning Advisory Committee meeting. Number 1 is attendance. Councillor Williams is now with us, so we're only missing Councillor Carr. Everyone else is present. Disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Seeing none. Item 3, 3.1, minutes of the City Council Planning Committee meeting and Planning Advisory Committee meeting held on July 2nd, 2019. Motion to approve? Yes. To receive? To approve. Motion to approve. Ms. Brown and David, don't forget his last name. David, Mr. Joyce, thank you. All those in favor? And that's carried. Item 4, deputations. Anyone wishing to speak, come forward, please. State your name for us.
Good evening. My name is Andrea Sinclair. I'm with MHBC Planning, and I'm here in support of the condo conversion applications. I was here on July 2nd, and following that meeting, provided some additional correspondence to staff that I hope helped to address some of the questions and comments that committee made on July 2nd. We have reviewed the staff reports and are in support of staff's recommendation. As well, we reviewed all of the draft plan approval conditions that are proposed, and we've reviewed them with our client, and we're in agreement with all of those conditions. If there's any further questions this evening, I'm happy to answer those, but otherwise I'm just here in support of the applications.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions? No? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, where did we go? No correspondence. Item 6, referrals from public meeting. 6.1, notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 10245 as amended, 260 and 262 Dundas Street East, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, file number B-77-1086. Application owner, James McMahon Dentistry Professional Corporation. Agent is Task Force Engineering Incorporated. Principal Planners Report number PP-2019-51. The resolution reads that report number PP-2019-51, dated August 6, 2019, regarding notice of complete application and introductory public meeting for application for proposed amendment to zoning bylaw number 10245 as amended, 260 and 262 Dundas Street East, east of Belleville, County of Hastings, be received as information, that staff report back at such time as input from the public, commenting agencies, and municipal departments has been received, assessed, and addressed to the satisfaction of the Engineering and Development Services Department. Mover, please. Sanderson and Mr. Baltutis. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Number 7, reports. Item 7.1, recommendation report for a proposed condominium conversion, 217 Bridge Street East, City of Belleville. Owner Parkwood Apartments Limited, care of Real Star Management. File number 12CD-19002. Agent MHBC Planning Limited. Manager of Approvals Report number APS-2019-25. Resolution reads that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends the following to City Council: that the Council of the Corporation of the City of Belleville approve the request for approval of a plan of condominium file 12CD-19002 for the 68-unit apartment building located at 217 Bridge Street East, more specifically described as part of Lot 26W, Registered Plan 166, and part of Lots 51 and 52, Registered Plan 267, being Part 1, Plan 21R-23803, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, subject to the draft plan conditions outlined in attachment number 4 of the Manager of Approvals Report number APS-2019-25. Mover and a seconder, please. Mr. Joyce and Councillor Sanderson. Thank you. Discussion? Councillor Sanderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I've looked through the application, and I think we need to consider that we've got an acute rental shortage in our city. In 2014, the vacancy rate was 4.8%, and that number has steadily worsened to 2.4% was reported in 2018. As I look at the provincial policy statement, 1.1.1, item B says that we should be accommodating an appropriate range and mix of residential housing. And right now, we have, as I mentioned, an acute shortage on rental properties, so we don't have what I would consider an appropriate mix currently. Adding any more, subtracting rental properties from the mix worsens the problem instead of improves the problem. It also goes on under 1.4.3, subsection 1, all forms of housing required to meet the social, health, and well-being requirements of current and future residents. Well, again, under the provincial policy statement, this conversion would run counter to that statement. On the city's official plan, it says that the plan supports the development of all forms of housing in all forms of tenure, being freehold, rental, cooperative, and condominium. And it goes on to say that one of the considerations that we should give is existing vacancy rates in the community. As I stated, the existing vacancy rate is 2.4%. I've done a little bit of research, but wasn't able to find a lot of information other than out of Kingston, where they've published a document that says a healthy vacancy rate of rental properties is 3%. So if that number is accurate, then we're certainly below that. So for all of those reasons, I will not be supporting this recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Pardon me, Councillor Sanderson. You've articulated every point that I wanted to make. Thank you. Any further discussion? Yes, Mr. Balchunas.
In the future, are we not building more rental units being that we've come, if I recall correctly, some have gone through this committee and we've approved some rental units and they're just waiting to get started to be built, or they're in the process of going through the engineering department and permits?
I'm going to pass that question to Mr. Ashton, if I may.
I guess we have had approvals of multi-residential buildings. I mean, we're not in control of when they get built, so I guess that would call for conjecture if I was to sort of make that kind of statement. But, I mean, we're hopeful that they're going to be built, but the timing of it, we're not sure. The manager of approvals with site plans is here as well, so maybe he could also provide any updates that he's aware of.
Certainly, through the chair to the members of the committee, it's something where there are multiple site plans in progress. Certainly, College Street, across the river. You know, there are a number of sites where there's interest. Again, sometimes a site plan gets approved and then it sits for a while, so we don't know for sure when things would be built. Similarly, as we're looking at concept plans for new subdivisions, we're seeing additional interest in medium and higher density blocks being put into those subdivisions. So, I mean, it seems that the market is moving in the direction of addressing this demand, but we don't have an exact timeline on it.
If I may ask you a question, Mr. Pynchon. When a person, a developer, builder, builds a new apartment building, are they obligated to include affordable house, subsidized housing?
Certainly. So it's it depends. I mean, if they're just building a straight up apartment building, they can adjust the unit pricing however they want. If they're taking advantage of programs that are available, say through the province or the federal government, there's quite likely a requirement for a threshold.
Are you able to comment on whether or not the plans that have come to the city include any subsidized housing?
Well, I mean, certainly the two that I'm thinking of most recently, Corner Station in Albion and Great St. James, I mean, there are certainly affordable components there. The same with Home for Good on College, or north of College on Sydney, that's another one, and the project across from the police station, they all have affordable components to them.
If I'm not mistaken, Home for Good was built for subsidized housing completely. The last time I asked, there were well over 100 people on a critical housing list that would require subsidized housing. We've nothing on the books to meet that kind of need currently that I know of. Do we?
Beyond what we have in the pipeline, no.
No. Okay, thank you. Sorry, Councillor Kelly.
Through you, Madam Chair, just some comments, just to follow up on Councillor Sanderson's thoughts. I had a chance to go to the building in discussion and speak to a couple. They sold their home, they moved into the apartment, so they would have some financial security. They talked about living on a fixed income. They can do some nice things throughout the course of the year, but at the end of every month, they know what the cost is. The other thing, too, I went through this book that we received back in May, 2018 Municipal Comprehensive Review of Urban Serviced Area, and it was a report by Watson Associates. And in that report, the average person per housing unit is in decline, and by 2014, the numbers will be smaller, 2.23 per home. The city's aging population in the next 20-plus years, 75-plus age group, older seniors, more than double in the next 20 years. And we're all going to get there, hopefully. We all want to have an affordable home. We don't know what's ahead of us. So I think it offers some security for the tenants the way it's structured right now. And the big thing is affordable housing. And then I looked at the report, and out of the 68 apartments, 13 are one bedroom, 36 are two bedroom, and 19 are three bedroom. And I don't know what the tenure is for those who reside in the apartments, but that's home for them, and they could be there for a long time. So just wanted to add that in
Thank
tonight.
you, I certainly agree. And yes, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Culhane. I'm not going to support the recommendation, and you know, there have been some very good comments made already around the table, in particular Councillor Sandison's reading of different parts of the provincial policy statement, which requires us to have balance. But there's two main reasons why I'm not going to vote in favor of this. First is that we are dealing with a full-blown housing crisis. That's the purpose why we had a housing summit in March to discuss the activities or the actions the city could take to increase the amount of rental stock that we have in our city, which will take pressure off all other areas. You know, we haven't done it yet. We may have people in the pipeline, we may have some interest. We're going to see much more interest when we're able to explain our incentive program and how we're going to stimulate those additional units being made. But it'll be quite some time before we get through it, before we get to the other side of the tunnel where we now have more supply on the market. What this proposal is taking rental accommodation and converting it into condos where people will own. And I appreciate the comments that, you know, people will not be evicted and they have some say. But end of the day, we're reducing the amount of rental housing that we have in the city. We're not adding to it. And we're not adding to it until we have new builds come on. So I think this makes it worse. All of the items that, you know, Councillor Sandison outlined in the provincial policy statement, I think are applicable, and they're good, sound policy or planning reasons to turn it down. The other reason why I'll be voting against this has got to do with our tax rates, which is the reason why people want to convert these properties. You know, we are already proceeding with a reduction in the multi-residential tax ratios, which is a benefit to the owners and the landlords of these buildings, which I'm sure they're going to pass on to them. We are doing our bit. Actually converting it puts the city in a worse position, because that tax reduction now is even higher than we have there. And just because this building is to be converted doesn't mean that the expenses that the residents in that building are using for the city that are supported by tax dollars are also going to be reduced. You know, we still have to plow our streets. We still have to have police and fire and emergency services, social services. We still have to have the functioning of City Hall and our planning departments, all those things still there. But as we found in April when we tried to finalize our budget, and we found that the province didn't consent to the tax load on this ratio, and we had to find an extra $700,000 to do it. This is because of this process here, this conversion process, and so you know, that puts us in a worse situation. It leaves us with less available rental accommodation in the city of Belleville, and it depletes the revenue the city needs in order to provide the services that we have in the past. So for those two reasons, I'll be voting in opposition to this resolution.
As will I. Thank you very much. Any further commentary? Ms. Brown?
Well, I understand from the Housing Summit that rental accommodation is clearly an issue that needs to be grown within the city. Equally so, affordable housing is something that the city has to consider. It doesn't matter whether it's a rental or a condominium if people can't afford it at the end of the day. I'm going to vote in support of this, given that it, as a result of the tax decrease, actually increases the amount of affordable housing that's made available by 2 units in this particular building. And that overall, all of the tenants in this will be in a better position financially in that the tax savings is being passed back to the current residents of the building.
Call the vote. Councillor Williams?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just reading this report, just to echo that sentiment, from what I can understand and given on the staff notes and from the public, that the tax savings from this project, the conversion, get passed directly to the residents. As far as I can understand, the fact that they're holding these units for 10 years plus, that they're doing this immediately, does not immediately make these houses not affordable, and I think the case was made by Ms. Brown is that they are being made affordable, and that we're keeping those same rental units at least for 10 years. And I echo also the sentiments. I understand the affordable housing crisis we have, and I get that. But as a planning argument, I'm finding it hard to find a reason that this would be upheld, that our decision here to not approve this would be upheld under an LPAT if they went there. And that's what I'm always looking at is, I think, because there's another savings here, is saving legal costs that we might be forced to try to uphold when there is no argument. Now, I'd just like to ask a question to you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Ashton or Mr. Bove. Have we seen this kind of conversion being denied only to go to a tribunal before? Have we seen this happen? And what was the result of that if that did happen?
Through the chair to Councilor Williams, the city a number of years ago denied an application on Tracy Park Drive, a similar number of units, I believe. The owner of that building or a series of buildings appealed the decision. City staff and the solicitor for the city reviewed the case files and met with the owner and the OMB at the time, and the legal opinion that the city had was they were not going to be successful at a hearing, and they should come to terms on a settlement with the owner and allow the conversion to go ahead, and that's what took place.
Thank you, through the chair. As I'm reading through this as well, I'm looking at the document, and it seems like these units are being guaranteed for 10 years, and the owner has told us more than once that they do not plan to change them from rental units, first of all. And second of all, it looks like they're all going to get rental reductions. So I'm not sure how the argument that it's not good for low income or affordable housing in the city. So I think this is a good proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If members of the committee had taken the time to read the report, they would see that on page 20, staff notes that a 2009 application for condominium conversion elsewhere in the city was denied on the basis of the financial impact of the city in terms of tax revenue. So it wasn't denied based on vacancy rate. It wasn't denied based on the provincial policy statement and our official plan. It was denied because it was based only on the financial impact to the city on tax revenue. I don't know how the discussion devolved into affordable housing. What we're talking here is conversion from condominiums to apartment buildings. So unless somebody around the table knows what these condominiums are going to sell for, I don't know how you can make the statement that they're affordable or not affordable. And it really comes back to a judgment in terms of where we're at on vacancy rates. I mentioned that we were 4.8%. We've gone to 2.4%. we've got an acute housing shortage on rental properties. I don't know how that's difficult to understand, and for that reason, I maintain that we should not be moving forward to convert these rental units into condominiums, not at this time.
Yeah, you know, and just listening to the conversation, and I appreciate everyone's opinions on this, but, you know, making commitments for 10 years does not guarantee rental accommodation in the city. And even in 10 years, we may not be out of this rental accommodation crisis in Belleville as we go forward. But more importantly, you know, and again, I'm not sure if everyone really understood the significance. City Council went through a process this year of setting our budget and our taxes. And then lo and behold, you know, all municipalities in Ontario were required to reduce our ratios on multi-residential properties. The ratio that they pay higher than they do on the residential side. And we are we're forced to, and we're working on a process to reduce that. Because of items like conversions in the past, we actually had to accelerate that conversion, and because of the change in government, there was some confusion. But at the end of the day, we had about a $600,000 to $700,000 hole where we had to shift the tax burden from what we proposed to charge multi-residential to the residential side. And that it resulted in us going from a 2.8% property tax increase to 3.2. So what we're doing effectively is we are shifting the tax burden in the city of Belleville from some of it from people who are living in multi-residential properties in apartment buildings to single dwelling property owners. That should be understood what this process results in. At the end of the day, high density housing utilizes significantly more services in terms of municipal services, whether it be waste collection, whether it be water and sewer and all the other things that we deal with, some of which are user pay and some of which are not. But at the end of the day, this reduction in the taxes that these properties will be having is not corresponding with the reduction in the services they're demanding from the city of Belleville. And that is the problem with this process fundamentally. We've got on the housing side, in terms of reducing the amount of rental accommodation in the long term, we're taking it off the market. But more importantly, we're saying that we're going to increase taxes on other people so that these units can be converted. If members of the committee are comfortable with that, then by all means, we can go ahead and we can do that. But certainly as a member of council, that is irresponsible action to take where we're now basically reducing someone else's taxes through a conversion and increasing other people's taxes, where what is the net change in terms of the use of services? There is none. You know, that's the biggest reason why I'm not supporting this, and I hope that perhaps will give some additional items for people to consider. Again, this exact property came before the last council, and we did not support it. We did not agree with the conversion, and it's back again under this term, and nothing has changed to demonstrate that it is a better idea than it was last time when it was voted down. And you know, again, I don't want to say this is a line in the sand, but certainly this is a message that we need to send to multi-residential property owners that we're not in support of this method to basically give themselves a tax decrease at the expense of other residents.
Thank you, Your Worship. Ms. Brown?
Madam Chair, if we could have a point of clarification, it was my understanding that the previous application was not the conversion per se, but rather an exemption from the conversion policies that was declined by council. So it's my part A. And the second part, I'd like staff clarification on page 16, because as an individual, I can read as much as I can read, which indicates that the condominium conversion policies in the city's official plan does not include changes to tax rates as a criteria to be considered when reviewing conversion of an existing rental property to condominium. So two parts is if I could get clarification on when it came to council formally, was it this application or was it something different? And then the second piece is, if we are considering the tax rate implications to this, that seems to be in congruence to what we're reading here under the staff comments.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. If I recall correctly, short version of condo conversion was the first application, but I'm not positive, so. Mr. Pension.
Certainly, through the chair to members of the committee, the application last fall was a request for exemption from the condominium conversion process, essentially a shortcut that council's able to approve to go straight to final approval. Council felt that that didn't provide enough information, and so it was denied, and essentially the applicant was then free to make a full application for a plan of condominium, which we're now seeing before us. In terms of the bullet point on tax rates as criteria, that's correct. There are a number of points in the official plan that are to be considered in considering the appropriateness of condo conversions, and reference to tax rates is not within that.
Any further discussion? Then just to be clear, yes, I'm sorry?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So while the official plan doesn't talk about tax rate consideration, and I didn't talk about it, what it does talk about is giving cognizance to the existing vacancy rates in the community. It states that in black and white. So the existing vacancy rates in the community are 2.4%, very unhealthy. So that's what I think we need to really give consideration to in the official plan portion of our consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sanderson. I too read the reference to the city's official plan, but Mayor Panchak's explanation makes it much clearer exactly what the tax impact is. And perhaps we don't all interpret what we read in the same fashion, but I find that very helpful, that review. It does shift the tax burden, as explained. Now, any further questions, any further commentary? Councillor Sanderson.
Can I ask for a recorded vote, please?
Certainly.
Mr. Jennings? Yes. Excuse me. Mr. Baltutis? Yes. Councillor Sanderson?
No.
Councillor Williams?
No.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Councillor Kelly?
No.
Mr. Joyce?
Yes.
Councillor Culhane?
No.
Mayor Panchak?
No.
Motion fails. So, procedurally, we've gone down.
We need a mover for a motion to recommend that council deny the application with a planning explanation.
Based on the provincial policy statement and the official plan.
You're making that motion?
I'm making that motion, yeah, the items identified.
Thank you. to
Sure.
fully word the motion, please.
So it's to deny the application based on provincial policy statement 1.1.1.
Slow down just a bit,
Sure.
please.
1.1.1B, which talks about the accommodation of an appropriate range and mix of residential properties. And also the official plan, city's official plan, 3.10.2, 1, or I, which talks about the existing vacancy rates in the community. So based on those two reasons.
Seconder, Councillor Kelly, thank you. Also recorded? No, not necessarily, not for me. All those in favor? Oppose? 3, 4. Yes. Motion is carried. Thank you. Item 7.2, recommendation report for a proposed condominium conversion, 230-232 Moira Street East, City of Belleville. Owner, Moira Street Apartments Limited, care of Real Star Management. File number 12CD-19003. Agent MHBC Planning Limited. Manager of Approvals Report number APS-2019-26. The resolution reads that the Planning Advisory Committee recommends the following to City Council. That the Council of the Corporation of the City of Belleville approve the request for approval of a plan of condominium, file 12CD-19003, for the two 12-unit apartment buildings located at 230 and 232 Moira Street East, more specifically described as parts of lots 1 and 2, east of James Street and part of Lot A, west of Moira Street, registered plan 103, being Part 1, Plan 21R-502, City of Belleville, County of Hastings, subject to the draft plan conditions outlined in attachment number 4 of the Manager of Approvals Report number APS-2019-26. Mover, please.
If I can, I'd like to, based on our previous discussion on the item we've just dealt with, would it be appropriate for me to put a motion on the floor to deny it for the very same reasons and move that to council?
So that's an amendment, no? Oh, okay. So you're putting a motion forward to deny, and we need a seconder for that. Mayor Panchuk, thank you. Discussion? Want to record it? Anyone want it? No? All those in favor? So, 4. Oh, Ryan's hand was up. Okay. And opposed? So 1, 2, 3, 4. The motion is carried. Thank you. Information matters. Item 8, 8.1, official plan and zoning bylaw amendment monitoring report. And that is under page 125. Any discussion? Item 9, general business and inquiries. Oh, sorry. A motion to receive, sorry. Item 8.1, Mr. Baltutis and Councillor Sanderson. Those in favor? Thank you. Item 9, general business and inquiries. Seeing none. Motion to adjourn. Councillor, oh, I just have to make the remarks, closing remarks, the Planning Advisory Committee's applicable decisions will be forwarded to City Council for consideration, forming part of the agenda for the City Council meeting to be held at a future date. Motion to adjourn, Councillor Sanderson, I think was Mayor Panchuk. All those in favor? Thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned. You're excellent.